welcome to the Spirit Gathering Teleconference. Today's November 15th, 2022, and my name is Reverend Teresa Jayne. Our topic today is creating a home altar. For today, we're a small but mighty crowd, me and Reverend Sue Roweeder. I'm really glad that you joined us, Sue, and for those listening on the recording, thank you for listening. And I'd like to start with an invocation so that we can call in all the energies of the universe that are helpful and working for the highest and greatest good of all. So just kind of settle into your body and connect in with higher planes. And we invite the trust and innocence of the child so that we can remember to see things with wonder, curiosity, and awe. We invite the power and maturity of our adult selves so that we can witness and listen in order to respond without reacting. We invite intuition and introspection, imagination and mystery. We invite the light of new beginnings and unlimited possibilities. We invite the ability to be grounded and centered in our physical bodies. We invite the ability to allow our emotions to flow and be expressed in a beautiful way. We invite the ability to receive with our intellect clear and truthful information. We invite our ability to determine our actions with our own true spirit. We invite the ancestors of the land we live on and the ancestors of our lineage. We invite the unseen beings of this world that are of the light and who shower us with unconditional love and assistance. And now let us connect with and feel the infinite love and blessings of the divine source of all that is. And so, in celebration of the people and in honor of the sacred laws that all things are born of the divine feminine space, sparked and seeded by the divine masculine, and that nothing shall be done to harm to the children, we declare this sacred circle closed. So be it.
So be it.
Thank you. Now, let us imagine that we are joining together heart to heart with every person on this call and every person listening at any time can connect now. Now let us imagine that we're joining together in a circle with the flame in the center. Imagine a spoke of light coming from the center of the circle to your heart and for each person on the call tonight or listening in after. And so we are connected, sacred heart to sacred heart. Let us intend that we listen to one another with compassion and curiosity. Let us intend that we ask for what we need and offer what we can. Let us intend that we deepen our connection with one another and the divine. May this sharing serve us, our communities, and the planet. And so it is.
And so it is.
So, as I was thinking about what topic I was going to use for the spirit gathering, I noticed my main altar in my house, and I have it right in the center of my house where I walk by it all the time, and it's constantly changing and evolving and growing and falling apart, and it's kind of a living, breathing thing. And I thought, it's interesting that we are a virtual church. And so when we go to church buildings, there's always an altar there. And I thought, you know what? Our home is our sanctuary, and it's nice to have a focal point in our home, or more than one, that reminds us of the sacredness of everyday life. And for me, an altar helps me to do that. It creates a sacred space that's always there. And it can really look like whatever we want it to look like, because everyone has a different idea of what sacred is. And sometimes it's just something that is beautiful in your home that has a special place, and sometimes it's objects that bring you to a peaceful and holy place. And it's nice to have a reminder as we run through our busy day-to-day lives. We can sort of get caught up in the to-do list or the busyness of family and home and just kind of getting things done. And so I find that these special places in my home that I walk by and have to dust, and, it really brings me back to the full-on truth that all things are sacred, and there are things that have priorities in our lives. So I tend to put things on my altars that remind me of my true priorities. And, I'm a big list maker, so I do love my list, but I do really love to take a moment in my days to just take a pause. And I find standing in front of my altar or sitting and seeing my altar as I eat my breakfast in the morning, or it just lets me remember to be grateful and to know that I'm loved and held always by something greater than myself. So I wanted to share that with the community of Tzaddi. So, the question might arise, where do you put your altar? And a lot of us have, our share of clutter in our homes, or there's just no space, we think. But I've lived in a lot of different places, some very, very tiny places where, I'm just renting a room in a home. And sometimes I have big spaces. And I always, pretty much the first thing I do when I move somewhere is to set up an altar of some sort, because that helps me create the entire space in my home, no matter how big or large. First and foremost. So my home is sort of built around my altar. And if you look around your home, you might notice or identify a space that just feels like it would be a good place for an altar. It could be, the top of your dresser. It could be, I have a short little 2-shelf bookshelf that fits perfectly in the center of my home, and it's surrounded by my living room, my dining room, and my kitchen. And I like having my altar in the center of things. And I have other altars in my home. I have one in my bedroom that looks completely different than the one in my kitchen, and I have one outdoors, where I have a fountain and I have Kuan Yin, and I have it's just a serene, peaceful place that I can sit outside and commune with nature and have that figure of Kuan Yin, who is to me so gentle and compassionate and non-judgmental, so that I can channel that energy to be that way with myself when I get harsh about, and judgy about myself. It helps remind me, oh yeah, I have those energies that I can tap into and just be kind to myself. And, or at least as kind as I am to others. And so, an altar can go anywhere. You can even, if you don't have a lot of privacy and your altar feels very private to you, I've used a cigar box to keep my altar in and put tiny little things that are reminders into my cigar box, and a little altar cloth inside. And then when I feel a need for my altar, I can just get it and put it out in my own private moments and then put it away again. So, there's no real right or wrong about altars, and it doesn't have to look a certain way in order to have deep and powerful meaning for each of us. Speaking of which, some of the components of an altar could be, but not limited to, you get to use your imagination and your creativity when you create an altar. It makes it, and sometimes you want to create a family altar so everyone gets to take part in creating the altar for the family, or for a couple, for your coupleness to create an altar together and create a sacred place. It's really a beautiful and bonding experience, or it can be. So you want to have a cloth that everything on your altar goes on. And, you could use a beautiful scarf. You could use, go to a fabric store and find the exact perfect yard of material that just speaks sacredness to you. And, it's fun to find the perfect color and the perfect pattern, or the perfect texture of your altar cloth, and you use it just for that it's dedicated to your altar space. And over the years I've collected lots of different altar cloths, and sometimes I just need to change it up a bit. And so I'll dismantle my altar and then find the cloth that really speaks to my heart and to my spirit, and that's my altar cloth for a while. And I think it's important to have a candle on your altar. The candle and the flame, the ability to light a candle as a minister, I have a lot of people who ask me to pray for them. And it's nice to just have a candle on my altar so I can light a candle for them, literally, and have my attention there for an amount of time. And I do keep my prayer bowl on my altar, on one of my altars. And, basically my prayer bowl is I just write someone's name who wants me to pray for them on a beautiful little piece of paper, and I put it in my prayer bowl, and I keep it there until, the person says, okay, I'm good now, and then I burn that ceremonially. And, there are times when my prayer bowl gets very, very full. And so it's nice to have a container in a sacred space in my home so that it reminds me to continue to pray for people when they ask. And, sometimes I like stones a lot. I like crystals a lot. So I typically have stones that have special meaning to me. And stones are holders of energy. So whatever intention you put into a stone, it holds it for you. So it's kind of a low maintenance kind of energetic. You let the stone hold energies that you want there. So the stone beings are good friends of mine, and I like to use them. And the crystals, of course, enhance any energy that you put in. So I believe that the crystals enhance the power of prayer and intention. So I like to have a crystal or two on my altar. I like to put something of beauty on my altar, just because I so appreciate beauty and it moves me in such deep ways. It's why I live in Ojai, because I think it's one of the most beautiful places on earth, and it makes me happy. So a lot of times I'll put just something that I just think is beautiful on my altar. I also put things that bring me comfort. And, I kind of, my altar is in a space where it's up against a wall, and my altar tends to creep up the wall as well. Mm-hmm. So I have a lovely angel on my wall above my altar that brings me comfort. It keeps reminding me that, the angels are assisting us through these sort of trying times that we live in. And when I get a little afraid of the unknown, I can look at my angel and know that it's loving me and holding me in all the unknowns, and it gives me comfort. I like to put things of divinity on my altar, things that remind me of the divine. And I tend to be very eclectic in my spirituality. And so, I tend to have things from many different spirit paths on my altars at any given time. And I can connect in with those aspects of God. I just see all the aspects and the ways that so many people are drawn to different things that feel larger than ourselves, and that we can tap into the energy of those different aspects of God. So, I have different pictures or figures or different things that, even aspects of nature that feel like the divine to me in a different aspect. So, and I tend to be very sort of zen. It sounds like I have a crowded altar. And sometimes it does get crowded and I have to clear it off and really prioritize what needs to be on there. And that's good to change it up a bit because, the moment that our altars get dusty or kind of bad looking, it's time to change it up. And it's like holding a special spiritual service for ourselves when we dust off and reorganize our altars. It just, as we're living and growing and changing beings, we need to catch up with ourselves sometimes, and we need to catch up with our spirituality as well. And so our altars are a reflection of where we are in relationship to God and the divine and all the aspects of those unseen beings that assist and guide us throughout our human earth walk. So it's nice to check out our altars once in a while and say, is that how I still feel? Is this resonant with who I am right now? And so that it's a good check-in for me. Sometimes I change one thing or another, and sometimes the whole thing's got to go and I start over again. I'm a big container person. I like creating a safe container for the healing work that I do and for ceremonies that I do. And so I tend to collect baskets and pretty wood boxes and things like that. So when I travel, I have a travel altar that I take with me, and if I'm staying in a hotel, I set up my little altar while I'm staying there. And so it's nice to have that sort of touchstone that represents our sacredness and spirituality. So we sort of have our spiritual home wherever we go, which is kind of like the Church of Tzaddi. There's no brick and mortar buildings, but we create ceremony wherever we go and invite others into that. So getting in the habit of doing that with our altars just helps us to practice that, I think. So is there any questions or comments or anything you'd like to share about your altar?
This is Sue, and I just really enjoyed your discussion a lot, and enjoy the idea of the free flow of energy, that there aren't any wrong or right. It's meaningful for us, whatever we choose. I had a friend come visit about 2 years ago, and the space that she stayed in, she always has an altar. And when I go in there, the altar is still there. And I'm thinking about the space I'm living in now. It was my mother's townhome. And nothing comes to mind right now where that other than that, where there may be an altar here. But I'm going to sit with it and set up an altar, at least one. I like your discussion about having your altar where it's readily available, where you can see it and have that connection throughout the day. Whether you're really consciously connecting or not, as you pass by it, you connect, your spirit connects. And I like that. I think that I had a friend that she had been a military wife, and so, you know, she traveled a lot, and she had 3 children, I think. And her practice was, whenever she got into a motel room, even if it was just going to be for a few hours, she totally unpacked and she made that room her home for however long she was going to be there, whether it was hours or days or whatever. And I think she had an altar too that she would set up. But I thought that is a wonderful practice. So no matter where she was, it was home, and she made it home. And I have that idea that that's kind of, in a way, what you do. Wherever you're at, it is your sacred ground. It is your sacred space. And you do that by setting up your altar. So I'm coming away with some really good ideas. And I will be looking around and feeling for that space. I know the space that my friend already established as an altar, that is definitely an altar. When I go into that space, it's like, yep, you know, that is an altar. And so I'm going to start feeling around this space, this townhome. And I have an idea where there might be one. My mother had this big, and I have it now. It's a big coffee table, but it's big. It's not, you know. And at Christmas time, when I would come home, that is where she would set up her little. She didn't get real trees anymore, but she had a ceramic tree that had bulbs on it and things, and she would set that up, and that kind of became our Christmas altar. She would set her gifts out, and if any of us had gifts, we would put them on this table and around that tree. And I'm thinking that table will be an altar for me. At least one right now. And I will just sit in these rooms and just feel, where is there a space here that is calling to be an altar. So that's my contribution, but this is really wonderful. It's to talk about and think about.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to start exploring this,
Yeah.
And once you get the idea, you're going to notice that there are sacred objects that you have that maybe you've sort of forgotten about, that want to be out in the open, that want to be honored and cherished, and I have a feeling you'll surprise yourself with what you actually have, So, yeah,
I love
always
your. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I really like how you speak about these things. When you said there may be objects that are ready to be honored, to use that word, it's like there's so many things in our lives, or I guess speaking for myself, what I've noticed or feel is true for our culture in a lot of ways. There's things, or like pets, like that we don't really honor. I have learned to honor my dogs. I've learned they're not just objects, they are beings that depend on me for their food, for, to just go outside and go to the bathroom. And I try to honor them as much as I can, honor their being, honor their presence in my life, and to speak about what the things or objects that we might put on an altar as honoring them is an interesting concept, because they do have life. They do have, whether it's stones or whatever, they do have life. They do have meaning. And so I really liked that word, honoring.
Mm-hmm.
And putting.
I recently was cleaning out an old jewelry box, and I ran across a little bag in my jewelry box, and I didn't know what it was. And it was like back when I was born in 1961, when a woman had a baby, they gave you little beaded bracelets, like tiny beads that said baby and the last name, and they were either pink and white or blue and white. And my mom saved those bracelets. They had one for her and one for me that matched. And those two bracelets were in this little bag, and I had totally forgotten that I had it. And so I put those bracelets on my altar to honor that, to honor the innocence and the vulnerability of those first moments that me and my mom got to know each other after I was born. And that just felt like a sacred moment that was in an object that I wanted to pay attention to. Just because, there's so many ways that we feel vulnerable in this world right now, and to really honor and see the beauty of vulnerability is something that I want to prioritize and pay attention to. So that's how things can get added to your altar, or, when I notice that something on my altar is just sort of a given, then I store it away for a while to rest. I let that object rest, and so that there can always be a flow and movement in my altar to the things that are the highest priority for me at any given time.
Wow, that's nice. I like that. And it keeps your altar fluid, keeps the energy moving, growing, and clean. Oh, very good ideas. As we're talking, I'm thinking of another place for an altar. In the bathroom here, the bath in the master suite, there's this L-shaped counter that covers two walls, and it's not that huge a space. It's just that, so like on one counter there's the sink, the basin, and then of course there's drawers and stuff like that. But I remember when my mother was living, she had I had bought this lavender colored crystal for her, and it's in the shape of a lotus. And she also had this tray that was a mirror tray. Several years ago, sometimes women would have those, and they would set things on there. They might have their brush and comb, or they might have perfume or something like that. But she had that crystal and that on that tray. And I'm thinking, in a way, that was an altar for her. And this space could be made an altar again. When she was in Alaska with me, we put this home up for sale, and someone came in and put a lot of things away to kind of stage the place. So a lot of that stuff has been put away, and now I'm like, I may want to go find some things and set that space up as an altar again.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I was talking about, is we don't always recognize it as an altar until we really reflect. And that was definitely your mom's altar, one of them. And so you get to create your own altar in that space. I mean, how lovely to pass that on. She passed it on to you as a generational thing. So
I don't know that she was interesting, because she was very much one that, in order to believe it to be true, she had to be able to touch it and feel it and see it. So this whole spiritual thing that I was doing was, she was very intuitive, and I talked a lot to her about how sensitive she was, how intuitive she was. Neither she nor my father would claim a belief in God because they couldn't touch or feel or see. And I maintained with my mom, and if my dad had lived very much long enough for me to be able to talk to him in that way, I would have told them that I really strongly believed that they very much believed in some part of their soul, just by the way they behaved and acted, and the things that they hold, my word, they held sacred. So she would not probably have ever called it an altar, but I definitely think it was an altar. It was things that were important to her, that spoke to her.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is going to be fun. I've been looking I've been here 4 years, going on my 5th year now, and I haven't done anything in this house in terms of putting away her stuff, putting my stuff in, whatever. And I have a feeling, it just dawned on me, that this altar thing is going to help spur me into action and make it more of a sacred process versus, oh man, I gotta, get my mother's stuff and, take the clothes to Goodwill, or, what I'm saying? That's kind of cold, but there's not any, to use your word, honoring in that. But now, to clear space for an altar and to set up the altars, that will help energize things, I think, in a sacred way.
Lovely. That's wonderful. Okay.
Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome. It was fun to, bring some clarity to myself about my practices as well. You want to learn something, teach it.
Well, there's
So,
truth in that, isn't there? I mean, not that you had anything you needed to learn, but I think there's truth in that. I always grow if I'm teaching.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this spirit gathering. You know, the call may be archived as an MP3 at www.tzaddi.org. And phone access to the recording of this call is available until next month's call. For playback of the recording, dial 712-432-1085, access code 990-322#. We hope that you'll join us for our next spirit gathering on December 20th, where Sue, you'll be hosting. So we look forward to that. And these calls are hosted by Tzaddi, an international metaphysical organization founded in California in 1964. Tzaddi welcomes, nurtures, and supports people in celebrating and more directly experiencing their relationship with the loving presence of the divine. Our programs are open to people of any race, color, or national or ethnic origin. Visit Tzaddi.org to learn more and to donate if you wish to. We will close now with thanks and a blessing. Thanks to Tzaddi founders Amy Keys and Dorothy Blackmere. We thank all of you who have been a part of our community tonight. And thanks to the divine who support us always, even when we're not aware of it. So I'd like to open the circle and release the energies. Is there anything that you would like to say before I do that, Sue?
No, I'm good. I feel very thankful and very grateful for this session tonight.
Good. Me too. So, Sacred Ones, we sit in great gratitude for your loving kindness and healing and your presence with us. And so release you in honor of sacred laws that all things are born of the divine feminine space through the power of the sacred masculine, and that nothing shall be done to harm the children of this planet. And so declare this sacred circle open but never broken. So be it.